Hey everybody, this is Blake here, and welcome to my review of Captain America 2: The Winter Soldier. Now, I have to admit, I was not the biggest fan of the first Captain America, and by first Captain America, I mean the first official Marvel movie, Captain America, not that cheap piece of crap 90s flick. But I'd probably say that it was among the weakest of the official Marvel movie lineup, along with the Incredible Hulk and maybe Thor 2, even though I prefer that one over Incredible Hulk and Captain America. But with that said, that's kind of a good thing, because if those two are the weakest movies, it just goes to prove that Marvel has been pretty good when it comes to their film output since starting with Iron Man. Because I do think that Captain America is a decent movie. I just didn't think it was as good as most of the other Marvel flicks. And I can see an argument being made for it being a good movie because it does the right things right enough to where I could understand why somebody would make a major emotional connection to the story and the characters. Whereas if somebody said the same thing about the Incredible Hulk or Thor 2, I might have to start an argument with you. um, but really the problem I had with it was I just thought it was very poorly paced. It took too long to get going. It seemed like it was an hour before Captain America became really involved in the story, and I just thought it was a little dull in parts. But at the same time, I had to give it credit for making me take that character seriously, which is something I never thought could happen. And I like the action scenes because they're really old school, but not necessarily old fashioned. I felt like I was watching just an older war movie that just happened to involve a comic book character. I liked the practical explosions, the gunfights, the hand-to-hand fights. They were all much more grounded in reality compared to the majority of the Marvel flicks, with some fantasy sci-fi touches thrown in there. But still, the pacing was just too awkward for me, so I couldn't really get behind it. So I can't say I was looking forward to Captain America 2 the same way that I was looking forward to Thor 2, because I just wasn't the biggest fan of its predecessor, even though I also really enjoyed the Avengers, which I thought really utilized that character incredibly well. Well, much to my surprise, I actually ended up really liking this movie. Is it great? No, I wouldn't put it on par with the Avengers or Iron Man, but I'd say it's up there with Iron Man 2, 3, and Thor, movies that I also really liked, even though I know many people don't. And yeah, if you're wondering, didn't I complain about Iron Man 3? I did, but once I watched it again on DVD, I appreciated it a lot more. But I do definitely think that Captain America 2 was a big step up from its predecessor. For one, it is much, much better paced. It gets going rather quickly, but it's never in a hurry to get itself over with. That was my big issue with Thor 2. I just thought, it moved incredibly quickly, but it seemed like it was very uninterested in the events that was in its own movie, whereas Captain America I thought moved at the exact right pace. It balances plot and characters with action incredibly well, never going too long before somebody gets into some sort of fight scene, but at the same time, it always knows when to slow down just to give us a little bit of a breather and focus on fleshing out the characters and the relationships and their relationship with the plot. That is not an easy thing to do in a comic book movie or any kind of action movie, but Captain America 2 really found a nice balance there. I also thought they did a really good job at making Captain America himself interesting. Now, in the first movie, I thought he was interesting until he became Captain America. Then I thought he became a rather standard, boring hero, even though Chris Evans, I thought, did a good job playing him. And then the Avengers, once again, I thought utilized him well to where he became interesting again. But this film, I liked how they gave him more of an internal conflict. There's a lot of doubt. He feels a lot of doubt in what he's doing, and it just made him sympathetic, and he's not as perfect as he was in the first Captain America. He does have moments where he just gets kind of angry and, I don't want to say violent, but this isn't just a typical Boy Scout, even though he is definitely trying to be that Boy Scout. So I thought that was kind of an interesting dilemma, and that made that character sympathetic. I did feel that the Winter Soldier was kind of underused, which is strange because the movie's named after him. He honestly felt more like a subplot than anything. when you compare this to, let's say, all right, Iron Man 2, the primary conflict was between Iron Man and Mickey Rourke, even though even that didn't get even that wasn't fully realized, but that was the main, just conflict. Well, here, that's not the case. The main conflict is between Captain America and a whole organization of people, and the Winter Soldier just happens to be part of that organization. And once they start interacting, I just felt that that wasn't. I don't know. I think the main problem was that this movie had too big of a supporting cast. There are a lot of characters who I didn't feel were relevant in this movie, but will probably become relevant in future films. And I always think that's a mistake, whether it's going to tie into, another Marvel movie or the Avengers 2 or Captain America 3. Certain characters, they just took too much time without being there long enough to really matter. Probably the two biggest examples is there's this one agent girl who kind of is an ally to Captain America, and then there's this bad guy who I don't really want to spoil anything there, but I think he's going to play a bigger role in a future movie. But then there's a lot of other characters kind of like that, but I don't know for sure. I mainly want to judge a movie based on its own merits, and I felt these characters kind of detracted from the story, and they should have focused more on Captain America and the Winter Soldier. But still, the Winter Soldier himself I thought was pretty cool. He had some really awesome fight scenes with Captain America himself, and I think they could make a really interesting character out of the Winter Soldier, but we'll just have to see. I did think Nick Fury was used really well. I'm a big fan of Samuel Jackson. He always has a lot of fun with these movies, and I like the fact that you're not entirely sure whether you could trust him either. You really do kind of sympathize with Captain America when he starts to have doubts about this guy, but at the same time, Nick Fury is just so likable that even if he turned out to be a total villain, you'd still probably be rooting for him. And Samuel Jackson gets a lot of room to have fun with the character. And I also thought Scarlett Johansson as the Black Widow was used pretty well. She's pretty much with Captain America the entire time, and she gets her moments where she gets to be awesome. She's not just as playing a typical second fiddle to Captain America. I liked Falcon. I thought Anthony Mackie, is that his name? I thought he really had a lot of chemistry with Chris Evans as Captain America, and he had a cool suit too. But once again, I kind of feel he was underutilized. He vanishes through a large portion of the movie, but suddenly during the second half, he's relevant again, even though he's not in a whole lot in the first half. I kind of felt they could have focused more on him too, and given him more interactions with Captain America, because once again they had compelling chemistry. But instead, you have to focus on these bit characters who just don't feel that relevant. But otherwise, acting, everybody does a good job. Robert Redford, he's in it, and it's a role he could easily play. I'm sure it took no effort, but he's Robert Redford, and he's not at least sleepwalking through the role. And that was my big issue with Tommy Lee Jones in the first movie. Even though he had some funny moments, he is kind of playing your standard Tommy Lee Jones role that doesn't really require him to act. But Robert Redford has a much more, I don't know, naturally entertaining personality. So even if this movie doesn't give him a whole lot to do, he's still fun to watch. Anything else I could talk about the acting or characters? I don't think so. The plot is much more grounded in reality once again. There's a lot more. There's a real life application here, especially when you consider post 9/11 and creating order through fear, which a lot of people accused the Bush administration of doing. And I kind of like that too, because part of the appeal of both Captain America movies is that they are different than the majority of the Marvel flicks. They aren't as reliant on aliens or supernatural like the others are, even though once again, yeah, there are elements of that. To me, the fact that it relies more on more old-fashioned, intrigue, or not old-fashioned, but old-school intrigue, gunfights, fistfights, and practical effects, I think is pretty cool. Even though, yeah, there's a lot more CGI here than there was in the first film. but it was still really good CGI, and I never took any issue with the action scenes. They were always spectacular. They were always exciting, and I always thought they were shot in a way that was just unique. And the choreography for the hand-to-hand fights was really cool too. The fight between Captain America and the Winter Soldier is probably the best one-on-one fight Marvel has yet to produce. That's how awesome it was. Even though the camera work was a little shaky, it never really distracted me from the action. So good job. Anything else I could say? The plot is pretty predictable. You will see every major twist coming except one. Or at least I didn't see one coming. It wasn't about who turns out to be a villain or not, or who. When it comes to twists involving the characters, I pretty much could predict them from the beginning. But when it came to where the story goes, let's just say that Captain America 2 is going to leave some major waves for the rest of the Marvel movies to come. Sort of like how Iron Man 3 had an ending that's really going to affect, future Marvel movies, whether it's the Avengers 2 or if they make an Iron Man 4. This movie also kind of ends that way, to where I wonder really what they're going to do in subsequent films. Once again, I don't follow the comic books or anything, so I don't know how close this ties into what happens in the original stories. But it'll be interesting to see where they go. But even though it's predictable, I always thought the plot was interesting. I always kind of liked the callbacks to the first film. It kept my interest from beginning to end, even though, yeah, I think it was a little bit too long. If they cut out these minor characters, it probably would have been trimmed by like 20 minutes. I think that would have been perfect, or at least convert that 20 minutes to just more interactions between the primary characters, like Captain America and the Winter Soldier, since the movie is named after the Winter Soldier. But otherwise, I thought this was a really good movie, and if you liked the first Captain America, definitely check this out in theaters. I do think it's an improvement. If you did not care for the first Captain America, or maybe you were like me and you didn't dislike it, but you weren't the biggest fan either, I'd still say this is worth checking out in theaters. Or at least if you are like me and you're kind of indifferent to it, because I do think it is as good as the majority of the Marvel movies out there. And but if you flat out hated the first Captain America, maybe you just might want to wait till it comes out on DVD. It's up to you. But that is all I have to say. I was really happy with this movie. Definitely exceeded my expectations. I did not do a written review of it, but I did do written reviews of the first 8 Dragon Ball Z movies and The Roost, which is a horror film, and I don't know what I'm going to do next. Maybe a written review of Citadel, or Citadel, probably pronouncing that wrong. I've had some wisdom teeth problem lately, so I feel like I'm pronouncing things weirdly. Or, I don't know, there's a new Steven Seagal movie I might watch too, or another Dragon Ball Z movie, since, God, I'm only like halfway through that marathon. I'm so sick of it. But other than that, please follow me on Twitter, Facebook, check out my website, check out my Amazon listing. I'm moving at the end of this month, so I'd like to get as much of this crap out of my house as quickly as possible. So I'd appreciate it if you just at least gave the list a look. And that's really all I've got, so I'll see you guys later.